Past 10 by the clock. We are back again with another edition of News on the Hour. Well, over the next 60 minutes, this is your one-stop show for all that matters from the field of politics, business, sports, entertainment. A big look at India's COVID-19 battle and also the vaccination drive that's picking up pace in India. Well, I'm Anil Thomas. Let's get started with the top stories. Daily increase in COVID-19 cases in the country surpasses the 2 lakh mark for the first time. Over 11.4 crore vaccine doses administered so far. Prime Minister Modi underlines commitment to ensure adequate availability of vaccines. Delhi, Karnataka witness record spike in new COVID-19 situation. Rajasthan imposes night curfew across the state from the 16th of April. Maharashtra remains worst hit. West Bengal Chief Electoral Officer calls for a meeting with recognized political parties to discuss campaigning precautions during COVID-19. The meet is scheduled for April 16. Indian Air Force Commanders Conference start today. The 3-day conference is aimed at addressing the issue of Indian Air Force's operational capabilities to give Indian Air Force a significant edge over its adversaries. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani speaks to President Joe Biden over U.S. decision to withdraw troops by September 11th, says Afghan forces capable of defending its people. President Biden says U.S. will reorganize counterterrorism capabilities and sustainable assets in the region to prevent re-emergence of terrorist threats. Resolution condemning the Uyghur genocide by the People's Republic of China introduced in the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee. The resolution calls on President Biden to refer atrocities for a UN investigation, seek sanctions and take all possible actions to end the genocide. And Real Madrid and Manchester City progress to the UEFA Champions League semi-finals after ousting Liverpool and Borussia Dortmund on aggregate. Real will face English club Chelsea, while neighbours Manchester City will fight French club Paris Saint-Germain for a spot in the final. Well, those were the headlines, and now for the stories in detail, starting first up with a vaccination drive. And day 4 of the countrywide Tika Utsav saw the total vaccinations cross the 11 crore 44 lakh mark, with over 33 lakh 13 thousand vaccine doses being administered on Wednesday. The cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country stand at 11 crore 44 lakh 93,238. 3 states have administered over 1 crore vaccinations, including over 1 crore 11 lakh vaccinations in Maharashtra, 1 crore 2 lakh vaccinations in Rajasthan, and around a crore in Uttar Pradesh. Well, the COVID-19 vaccination drive continues at great pace in the state of Goa. The Chief Minister of the state, Dr. Pramod Sawant, has urged citizens to keep up the momentum in order to attain 100% vaccination of the eligible citizens. He has also extended the Tika Utsav till the 30th of April in Goa. While India has reported 2,739 COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours. As per the Union Health Ministry, 93,528 recoveries in the last 24 hours, taking that cumulative total of recovered patients in India to 1 crore 24 lakhs 29,564. With this, India's recovery rate stands at 88.92%. India's total active caseload, meanwhile, stands at 14 lakh 71,877. The country's present active caseload is 9.84% of the total positive cases, and the fatality rate in India currently stands at 1.24%. Well, a quick look at the testing updates. As per the Indian Council of Medical Research, over 26 crore 20 lakh samples have been tested for COVID-19 in the country so far. This includes 13 lakh 84,000 samples that were tested on a single day, 14th of April. That's the Wednesday gone by. Well, amid rising cases, the Rajasthan government has decided to impose curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. from tomorrow. While all government offices will be shut from 4 p.m., shops, commercial establishments will have to down their shutters after 5 p.m. The government has also decided to postpone the board examinations for classes 10th and 12th for schools, which fall under the purview of the Rajasthan Board of Secondary Education. Well, have you ever wondered what has or what are the causes of virus to change and how you can prevent stronger variants of COVID-19 from emerging? Watch this video from the World Health Organization to help spread awareness. Well, moving forward, Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with governors of all states regarding the COVID-19 situation and the ongoing vaccination drive in the country through video conferencing. Prime Minister said that in the battle against COVID-19, along with the vaccines, our values and sense of duty are our biggest strengths. He said that the role of governors through appropriate utilization of their social capacity thus becomes all the more critical to achieving this. Discussing the increased RT-PCR testing capacity, the Prime Minister noted that the country has become Atmanirbhar or self-reliant with respect to kits and other material related to testing. All this has led to a reduction in the cost of RT-PCR test also. Prime Minister highlighted that India has become the fastest nation to reach the landmark of 10 crore vaccinations, noting the positive impact of Tika Utsav in the last 4 days. He said that in this period, the vaccination drive was expanded and new vaccination centers also came up. Well, shifting focus to West Bengal Assembly elections, the West Bengal Chief Electoral Officer has called for a meeting on the 16th of April, that's tomorrow, with representatives of recognized national and state political parties to discuss campaigning precautions during COVID-19. Last Friday, the Election Commission had reminded political parties to follow COVID-19 protocols for campaigning after finding instances during the ongoing assembly elections where social distancing and mask-wearing norms were flouted. In a letter to the political parties, the Election Commission reiterated its August 2020 guidelines for campaigning during the pandemic. It said that by violating COVID-19 norms, the political parties and candidates are exposing themselves as well as the public attending such election meetings to the grave danger of infection. The poll panel also clarified that the Commission, in cases of breach, will not hesitate in banning public meetings, rallies of the defaulting candidate or campaigners or political leaders without any further reference. Well, first biannual Indian Air Force Commanders Conference for the year 2021 was inaugurated by Defence Minister Rajasthan Singh at the Air Headquarters. The conference of the apex level leadership is aimed at addressing the issues of the Indian Air Force operational capabilities in times to come. A series of discussions will be conducted over a period of 3 days to address strategies and policies relating to capabilities that would give Indian Air Force a significant edge over its adversaries. Various welfare and human resource measures to improve HR and administrative efficiency will also be discussed. Air Force Commanders Conference is a biannual conference which provides a forum to the senior leadership of the Indian Air Force to discuss critical issues pertaining to operations, maintenance and administration. Well, for more on the story, Nandita Dagara, correspondent, joining us with more. Nandita, good morning. Nandita, give us we've looked at the broader outlines of this particular biannual conference, but throw more significance to the to the points that could be deliberated today in this meeting.
Yes, Anil, good morning. This conference comes at a time when India is in the second year or at least 10 months away from the standoff at the LAC in eastern Ladakh. Okay. So the threat perceptions would be foremost at the minds of the top commanders of the Air Force and the various branches which are involved in logistics, planning, human resources, etc. The threat from our northern borders, from China and of course from our western neighbor Pakistan. They are of course foremost, but secondly, we are currently looking at the footstep of the second wave of the pandemic, and this time too, if vaccines have to be transported to various parts of the country, the doses have to be given as Operation Vaccine Maitri to other friendly neighbor countries. The Air Force assets such as the huge heavy lift aircrafts of the Indian Air Force, just as they were deployed last year, they will be deployed this year as well as in the Vande Bharat mission, bringing creating air bubbles, bringing stranded Indians back. So if we are looking at another pandemic wave, another lockdown that is potentially hypothetically, then the Air Force has to make plans for that. Also, Anil, we've had new Rafales, at least 3 new batches of Rafales come this year, apart from the ones last year. They were inducted last year at the 21 Squadron in Ambala. So how that is going to change the Air Force deployment at various Air Force bases, that will also be discussed. Apart from that, network centricity and cyber security will be a huge focus of these deliberations, because we are looking at an adversary, China, which is increasingly using cyber assets or hacking via computer, that is asymmetric warfare, and therefore that is something that the Air Force will factor into their plans for the coming year. The Defence Minister, Mr. Rajnath Singh, has addressed the Air Force Commanders Conference today. It will go on for the next 3 days. We are expecting that the National Security Advisor Mr. Ajit Doval, the Chief of Defence Staff, Mr. Bipin Rawat. They will also be addressing, and of course, this is the first conference that takes place every year. The second one will take place in October, November. So for the next 6 months, the plans of the Indian Air Force are crystallized because there are the top commanders who are in charge of maintenance, training, etc. These are the issues, welfare of the airman. These are the issues that they will be looking at.
Okay, you put the broader picture into perspective for us when it comes to looking at the way Indian Air Force needs to operate on a larger level, but looking within, what could be the issues? There are a lot of issues that have been broadly mentioned, but looking within, purely in terms of manpower management, in terms of HR, what could be the steps or what could be the point of deliberation that could come into play in this 3-day conference?
The welfare of the airman, that is the grassroots worker, because he is the one who is involved not just in the ground duties, he is also there on board helicopters, he is on board the navigational aircrafts, he is on board the transport aircraft also. So he is a very key link in this chain, which has to be very, very strong. And his welfare, providing of married accommodations for the airman, the Air Force Wives Welfare Association also has a stake in this, because the welfare of his wife and children, providing education for them, and the airmen with children with special needs, his health and orientation training. After all, the main something that leads to high morale is good training and good competitive work environment. That is something that the Air Force will be striving for, because stagnancy is something that it would like to avoid at all costs. And as soon as you induct an airman, you invest a significant amount of money, resources, equipment for his training. And when you train him progressively from one stage to the next, he acquires more skills. And after, another issue, Anil, would be that after the retirement of the airman, because they retire at pretty young ages, from 40 to 50 years of age, that is, and they are still productive at this age. So rehabilitating them, easing them into the civilian life, providing work opportunities for them, or at least encouraging them to take up work in the private sector after they retire. That is something that would be a focus of the Directorate General of Resettlement and the Air Force Veterans Association also, because they keep holding fairs and festivals where they provide camps for these airmen.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us. You've got the next 3 days that's going to be, very busy on your schedule. Appreciate you joining us, and we'll come back to you for more updates on that particular story as it develops. Well, moving forward, in a joint operation, the Indian Coast Guard and the Anti-Terrorism Squad of Gujarat today apprehended a boat with 8 Pakistani nationals and 30 kilograms of heroin. According to the Coast Guard, the Pakistani boat was apprehended close to the international maritime boundary line in the Indian waters. The Coast Guard said that the operation was carried out in coordination with the ATS Gujarat. The boat is being now taken to the shore for a joint investigation by various security agencies. It will also be thoroughly checked for any more hidden items. Moving to Uttar Pradesh, where polling is underway for the first of the 4-phase Panchayat elections across 18 districts with ballot papers. Voting underway amid COVID-19 protocols and will conclude at 6 p.m. In the first phase, over 3 crore 16 lakh voters are eligible to exercise their franchise at 51,176 polling stations. As many as 3,33,000 candidates are in fray in over 2,21,000 seats in the first phase of polls of the Zilla Panchayat members, Kshetra Panchayat members, village Panchayat heads and wards. Well, time for us to slip into a short breather here on News on the Hour. Lots more on the other side. Stay tuned. We're going to be shortly back.
Kitchen waste, green waste, dried leaves from the garden, which are a source of carbon.
The money we received from the government added to our savings all went into the rice mill. I was into athletics before going in for judo, which really attracted me. It is a wonderful sport for girls and very beneficial.
Welcome back to News on the Hour. Now for international stories, starting first up with President Joe Biden on Wednesday declaring that he plans to end the longest US war and it is time for American troops to come home from Afghanistan as he looks to close out 2 decades of US military involvement there, even as critics warn that peace is not assured. In a speech at the White House, Biden set a goal of withdrawing all 2,500 US troops remaining in Afghanistan no later than 11th of September, with a final withdrawal beginning on the 1st of May. He added that he is the 4th president to preside over the US troops in Afghanistan and that he will not pass the responsibility on to a 5th.
After consulting closely with our allies and partners, with our military leaders and intelligence personnel, with our diplomats and our development experts, with the Congress and the Vice President, as well as with Mr. Ghani and many others around the world, I've concluded that it's time to end America's longest war. It's time for American troops to come home. The plan has long been in together, out together. U.S. troops, as well as forces deployed by our NATO allies and operational partners, will be out of Afghanistan before we mark the 20th anniversary of that heinous attack on September 11th. But will not take our eye off the terrorist threat. We'll reorganize our counterterrorism capabilities and the substantial assets in the region to prevent reemergence of terrorists, a threat to our homeland from over the horizon. We'll hold the Taliban accountable for its commitment not to allow any terrorist to threaten the United States or its allies from Afghan soil. The Afghan government has made that commitment to us as well.
Well, September 11th is a highly symbolic date, coming 20 years to the day of Al-Qaeda's attack on the US that prompted the then President George W. Bush to launch the conflict. As many as 2,400 Americans have lost their lives. Well, Afghanistan President Ashraf Ghani on Wednesday tweeted that he had a telephonic conversation with President Joe Biden, during which both the leaders discussed the US decision to withdraw its force from early September. Ghani said the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan respects the US decision and will work with its US partners to ensure a smooth transition. Ashraf Ghani also added that Afghanistan will continue to work with its US NATO partners in the ongoing peace efforts. He also asserted that Afghanistan's security and defense forces are fully capable of defending its people and country, which they have been doing all along and for which the Afghan nation will forever remain grateful. Well, after Biden's decision of American troops withdrawal, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has said that Afghanistan must construct a safe country for its citizens. On Wednesday, NATO allies pledged to mirror US plans to start removing troops on May 1st after 2 decades of war. Nearly 7,000 non-US forces from mainly NATO countries that include Australia, New Zealand, Georgia outnumber the 2,500 US troops in Afghanistan, but still rely on American air support, planning and leadership for their training mission.
In the light of the US decision to withdraw, foreign and defense ministers of NATO discussed the way forward today and decided that we will start the withdrawal of NATO rescue support mission forces by May 1st. Our drawdown will be orderly, coordinated and deliberate. We plan to complete the withdrawal for all our troops within a few months. This is not the end of our relationship with Afghanistan, but rather the start of a new chapter. NATO allies and partners will continue to stand with the Afghan people. But it's now for the Afghan people to build a sustainable peace.
Meanwhile, Britain's Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab on Wednesday said that the United Kingdom will support an orderly departure of forces from Afghanistan. He said, and I quote, "The UK stands with NATO and the people of Afghanistan to support a more stable, peaceful future for the country and the wider region. We will support an orderly departure of our forces while building up Afghanistan's capacity for self-governance and continuing counter-terrorism support to protect the gains made over the last 20 years. While US Senator Lindsey Graham, a key Republican voice on issues of America's military, decried the decision of US President Joe Biden to start withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan from May 1st, Graham asserted that maintaining a residual force of Americans and coalition forces in Afghanistan would be a prudent deterrence against the re-emergence of Al-Qaeda and would ensure the Taliban adheres to any negotiated agreement.
We gain the idea that the war is now over and Joe Biden ended the longest war in American history. With all due respect to President Biden, you have not ended the war, you've extended it. You have made it bigger, not smaller. You're going to do to us what you did in Iraq, put us in a world of hurt.
While ahead of Joe Biden's announcement there of the withdrawal of troops, CIA Director William Burns said Washington's ability to collect intelligence and act on threats will diminish when US troops leave Afghanistan. In his testimony to the Senate Intelligence Committee, Burns said CIA, with all its partners, will try to provide the kind of strategic warning to others in the US government that enables to address threat if it starts to materialize.
When the time comes for the U.S. military to withdraw, the U.S. government's ability to collect and act on threats will diminish. That's simply a fact. It is also a fact, however, that after withdrawal, whenever that time comes, the CIA and all of our partners in the U.S. government will retain a suite of capabilities, some of them remaining in place, some of them that will generate, that can help us to anticipate and contest any rebuilding effort.
Well, for more on this story, we've got Abhishek Jha, correspondent, tracking that story for us, joining us this morning. Abhishek, good morning. First things first, a timeline once again being set for a withdrawal, but a timeline with no conditions. Is that a big deterrent when you look at it, when you're dealing with especially, militant organizations, when you're looking at peace in Afghanistan?
Of course, Anil, but then there is one condition that the US administration is reportedly trying to put behind all this troop withdrawal, that in case there is a threat to the internationally supported government in Afghanistan, then US forces with their allies could re-engage in Afghanistan in their policy and their security affairs. So, however, like the number of troops, like 2,500 troops that US is trying to withdraw from Afghanistan in the next 4-5 months, it is kind of symbolic, because the kind of US troops presence and the defense involvement that we have seen the past decade in Afghanistan has been a huge number. Around 2009, almost 1 lakh US troops were present there, apart from the NATO forces. So we can now kind of understand the in terms of number. Again, the number of troops is not as much. It will be a symbolic departure of US troops from affairs of Afghanistan, so that the US forces or the US administration can focus on other issues of geostrategic importance and other security matters, and maybe to their domestic policies also that Biden wants to address more, interestingly.
Abhishek, looking at, what was there when Joe Biden took over, especially what was there on his table, a deadline that was already set for May 1st. And looking at the way things stand, do you feel that he had no options to maneuver other than, start looking at May 1st and then looking at a tangible solution of arriving at, somewhere where he could pull the entire US troops out of this particular war-torn region?
Actually, Anil, this is not the first time that any US leader or US president is trying to do it. In fact, Donald Trump, when he won the election back in 2014, he had also one of the primary agenda of withdrawing troops from Afghanistan that was promised to the people of the United States in his whole manifesto. And he did try to do that, and almost half of his tenure when it ended, and he started negotiating with Taliban and Afghanistan government, and how a more mediated government, an intra-Taliban government can be formed in Afghanistan. And in fact, there have been certain deals also in the start of early last year, where US and Taliban directly negotiated a peace deal. However, that peace deal looks in shambles currently now, because the Taliban has currently said that even if there will be no deal or no mediation between the political leadership of Afghanistan, the current government of Afghanistan, unless until all the foreign troops leave Afghanistan. In fact, Taliban has also threatened to increase its violence against foreign troops. So, in that light, we'll have to see how smooth those withdrawal of troops will be, because,
Okay, Abhishek, purely looking at what you mentioned, you got an April 24th talks that's going to come very much, less than 10 days left for that particular talks to transpire. Do you see, the Taliban, they're coming on board now that America has indicated they are going to withdraw by September 11th? Do you see the Taliban returning to the, to the drawing board where they are ready to discuss? Or do you see, Taliban is not something that you can trust?
It looks like all the participants in this whole Afghanistan peace process are trying to bargain hard for their share of benefit. In fact, Taliban has threatened that it will not participate in the Turkey convention that's going to happen for the peace brokerage in Afghanistan. It is kind of a symbolic gesture that US should be willing to concede more to Taliban in order to it's a major role in the intra-Afghan Taliban government. On the other hand, US has also said that while leaving Afghanistan, it does not want to leave Afghanistan in lurch. That it wants that neighboring countries and all those powers, including India, should have a better role in Afghanistan's peace process. So there are a lot more negotiations going on behind the wall also, as we see that the next round of talks and there will be a few more round of talks before any peace could be materialized between Afghanistan, it's the Taliban faction, Afghanistan's political leadership. You know that there is a clear divide in the Afghanistan political leadership itself, because after the election were announced, both Abdullah and Ashraf Ghani, they were actually very much at the differences, and then the peace deal between the two leaders were brokered by the US representatives, which said that the Ghani will be the president and the Abdullah will be CEO. So there is a clear differences in the political leadership also. Then there is the part of Taliban which wants most of the governance share in Afghanistan. Now there is the involvement of Russia, there is involvement of China, and then America wants to pull out from the space while leaving the space clearly for other regional neighbors or other regional powers to negotiate a peace deal with Afghanistan for the stable and secure Afghanistan. So clearly a lot of volatility we are going to see in the days to come, even though there has been clearly mark decided by Biden to withdraw all the US troops from Afghanistan.
Okay, Abhishek, looking at the way things stand, 20-year-long battle, you have spent close to $2 trillion there in this particular, Afghanistan battleground. You've lost close to 2,400, a little over 2,400 soldiers there. Do you somewhere feel now that, America has indicated it wants to withdraw, the Taliban is going to come and say, we won this round, and, we are going to come, we are going to invade further and capture more territory?
In fact, Anil, there has been clearly a rise in violence in the past few months where a lot of Afghanistan's territory has been conceded by its Afghanistan National Defense Forces in the hands of Taliban. So there is clearly a strong presence of Taliban as of now territorially in Afghanistan, and they are in lot more stronger position to negotiate their share of governance if there will be an intra-Taliban Afghan government system. Meanwhile, we can only say that this whole spending that US has done in the last 20 years has been one of the the highest amount US has ever done across the globe. In fact, this is the same amount almost that US is actually trying to spend to strengthen its whole COVID fighting mechanism.
Exactly.
You can just imagine the kind of spending US has done and the kind of spending US is currently needed to spend at its own for its own domestic affairs. At the same time, there are other economical powers at the global stage which are emerging and challenging US authority. That also needs to be addressed from the US current government, and Biden is trying to negotiate a peacefully smooth and decent departure from Afghanistan to focus on other issues of importance for his government, including domestic affairs and international affairs.
Abhishek, when you look at what US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken had to offer 1 month back, he talked about a UN-backed force there coming to take care of Afghanistan so that we don't see the re-emergence of Al-Qaeda. Do you somewhere feel that United States wants to get out of the Afghan war, but they don't want to get out of Afghanistan?
They want to remain present in the Afghanistan region because strategically, geopolitically, that area is very sensitive. At least we have seen the last 4 or 5 decades, most of the war, most of the international threats and security challenges have emerged from Afghanistan, or at least they have had their linkages from Afghanistan. You talk about jihad movement, you talk about 70s or 80s Russian and Afghanistan affair, conflict, and post that the new wave of terrorism, the new kind of terrorism that Al Qaeda and ISIS they have brought in at the World Forum. So in almost in all the cases there have been clear linkages from in Afghanistan. So US clearly wants to remain engaged, not physically on the ground, but at the level of intelligence, at the level of security data that it wants to analyze and it wants to share with its own administration, so that all the security threats that it has in this side of the world, in Asia especially, should be addressed clearly. They have also said that it is said that US intelligence report have said that now there is clearly no threat of any Al Qaeda or ISIS style attack that has happened way back in 2001 when US had to come to fly down to Afghanistan to deal with Al Qaeda and ISIS terrorists. So in that light only, US has decided to now pull out of this country. We'll have to see how this whole situation is panning out. In fact, US had, in the last 4 or 5 years, if you see, US has clearly withdrawn from the active engagement with the Taliban militia in the state. They were mostly trying to be engaged with the training and supporting and strengthening the Afghanistan's own national defense forces. And they were mostly engaged with securing US's own physical assets and US properties in Afghanistan. So currently there is no larger engagement from the US forces currently in Afghanistan, but still symbolically it will be a big boost to US morality, if you could say that they are pulling out of Afghanistan and leaving Afghanistan for its better future in the hands of Afghan people.
Abhishek, I would have loved going on with you, but the producer is pressed the pause button there. Thank you and appreciate you joining us this morning with those updates there on News on the Hour. So clearly, the focus is very much there. It's a pivotal moment, especially when it comes to US and its presence in the Afghanistan. They have decided September 11, 20 years to that day, when they would call it quits from the region of Afghanistan. Well, moving on to some other international stories, a bipartisan resolution was introduced in the US House of Representatives yesterday, that's Wednesday, condemning China's genocide of the Uyghurs and other minorities, while urging US President Joe Biden to refer the crackdown to the United Nations. The resolution seeks multilateral sanctions against the Chinese government in the UN Security Council and other unspecified actions to bring the genocide to an end. This comes a day after US Senators Mark Rubio and Chris Coons introduced bipartisan legislation wherein people of China's Uyghur community, minority community facing government repression, would become eligible for prioritized US refugee status. The white police officer whose fatal shooting of a young black motorist during a traffic stop in the Minneapolis suburban ignited 3 nights of protest and civil unrest was arrested on Wednesday and charged with second-degree manslaughter. Kim Potter, a 26-year-old veteran of the Brooklyn Center Police Department who turned in her badge on Tuesday, was taken into custody by agents of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. She was booked into the Hennepin County Jail and charged with second-degree manslaughter for the fatal shooting of Daunte Wright on Sunday in Brooklyn Center, where she will await her first court appearance in the case. Well, hours after Minnesota authorities arrested the white police officer who fatally shot a black man during a scuffle that followed a traffic stop, activist Reverend Al Sharpton and attorney Ben Crump held a news conference with the mothers of the movement, a group of women united after the killing of their black sons, to show support to the slain man's family. Speaking in Midtown Manhattan on Wednesday, Sharpton told reporters manslaughter too is the least she should get.
Manslaughter 2 is the least she should get. She didn't know in 26 years the difference in size and weight of a gun as opposed to a taser. Then how was she a veteran in policing?
Well, heavy rainfall and severe weather conditions have pounded Louisiana on Tuesday night, leaving thousands without power, tearing off roofs and forcing the emergency rescue of 6 people. Hazardous winds, lightning and ping-pong ball-sized hail came following days of tornadoes and flooding. The U.S. Coast Guard Heartland in a statement said on early Wednesday that it, along with a search plane and several other vessels, responded to an area in the Gulf of Mexico south of Fort Futon, where a commercial platform wheel capsized during a micro burst of bad weather. Well, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has on Wednesday said that the ongoing talks between Tehran and the global powers to salvage their 2015 nuclear deal must not become attritional. State television reported that Khamenei said that U.S. sought to impose its own wrong wishes on the talks, and European parties have privately acknowledged Iran's rights. Last week, Iran and the global powers held what they discussed as a constructive talks to salvage the 2015 accord. Tehran and the other parties to the deal will resume talks in Vienna from today. Well, rehearsals were underway on Wednesday for Britain's military ahead of Prince Philip's funeral on Saturday. Military personnel were seen rehearsing for their various roles in the funeral and preparing their uniform and equipment at the Army Training Centre in Surrey, England. The procession will begin at 2:45 p.m. local time, during which the coffin covered by Prince Philip's standard, a wreath, his naval cap and sword, and accompanied by the Dean of Windsor and Lord Chamberlain, will be moved to the state entrance of the Windsor Castle by a bearer party from the Queen's Company, 1st Battalion Grenadier Guards. Well, a quick look at updates on COVID-19 from across the world. Over 13 crore 88 lakh people worldwide have so far tested for COVID-19. Recoveries at 11 crore 16 lakh. Total deaths 29 lakh 85,000. United States worst affected, 3 crore 21 lakh cases of COVID-19. The death toll in the United States of America now passed 5 lakh 78,000 people. Well, top U.S. infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci has once again reaffirmed that the COVID-19 shots authorized in the United States are safe after U.S. regulators paused shipments of Johnson & Johnson shot amid reports that it can cause blood clotting. U.S. federal health agencies on Tuesday recommended pausing the use of J&J's or Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine for at least a few days after 6 women under 50 developed rare blood clots after getting the shot. Fauci said that the country has continued to follow very carefully any possibility of adverse events.
The fact that following the EUA, we have continued to follow very carefully any possibility of adverse events, I believe, is the other side of the coin of hesitancy. It should reinforce in those individuals how we take safety so seriously. So as opposed to looking this as a negative safety issue, it could be looked at as a positive issue where they know that when we let a vaccine be available and give it a go-ahead to be put into the arms of the American people, we do it with a considerable degree of confidence as to its safety.
Well, in Argentina, the government will tighten the pandemic restrictions in and around the capital, Buenos Aires, to rein in a sharp rise in COVID-19 cases. Schools in the country will be shut and curfew will be imposed from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. to limit social activity. President Alberto Fernandez said that the South American country needed to gain time in the fight against COVID-19 after daily cases hit a record this week. Argentina on Wednesday registered 25,157 new cases of COVID-19. So far, over 26,04,000 people have tested positive for COVID-19 in the South American country, where the deadly virus has claimed over 58,500 lives. The High Commission of India in Bangladesh has temporarily suspended the operations of all its visa centers across Bangladesh. The High Commission announced on Wednesday that the visa operations have been suspended in view of the lockdown implemented by the government of Bangladesh from April 14th till the 21st. The visa operations had resumed functioning in October last year after remaining suspended for more than 6 months due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which hit Bangladesh in March 2019. Visa was being issued under all categories except the tourist visa from the Indian Visa Application Center in Bangladesh. In the second phase of the countrywide lockdown, which started on April 14th, Bangladesh government has ordered the shutting down of all offices, public transport, including buses, railways, waterways and flights. It has asked people not to move out of their homes except in case of an emergency. In the year 2019, more than 16 lakh visas were issued by the Indian High Commission in Bangladesh. India's neighbor Bangladesh sends the highest number of foreign tourists to India. Well, time for us to slip into another breather. Here on the other side, we'll take a look at all the stock markets and business-related news along with sports. Stay tuned with News on the Hour.
Namaste land.
Marhaban ila al-Hind.
Zari India.
Salam India. Namaste India.
Namaskar Bharata.
Muy India. Nahnu hunuda India. Ma Hindi hasti. Hindian.
Salam Hindustan.
We are India.
Welcome back to News on the Hour. Now taking a look at markets domestically as well as internationally. Starting first up with India's domestic market, where the equity market benchmark BSE, Sensex and Nifty were trading volatile today on the back of mixed global cues. BSE Sensex was trading just about 48,300, while Nifty 50 gave up 14,500. So both are now trading. Sensex down 285 points, Nifty down 77 points, and the big losers there on the markets, Infosys, Mahindra were among the big losers there, barring Nifty IT and Nifty Auto. All the sectorial indices were trading in the positive territory. Nifty Metal Index jumped 2.6% today. Well, Asian markets were muted with Australia's job data for March expected later today. Nikkei 225 advanced 0.22% in early trade, while the Topix index gained 0.55 and South Korea's Kospi advanced fractionally. Meanwhile, in Australia, the S&P 200 dipped slightly. Well, Wall Street, meanwhile, closed mixed on Wednesday with the Nasdaq Composite and S&P 500 falling despite another record intraday high for the latter and a big bang stellar results on the first day of the earnings seasons. The Dow Jones rose 0.16%, while the S&P 500 lost 0.41% and Nasdaq Composite dropped 0.99%. Well, shifting to sports, the 4 UEFA Champions League semi-finalists have now been confirmed, with Chelsea to face Real Madrid and French club Paris Saint-Germain going up against another English club, Manchester City. Chelsea had booked their place in the last 4 of the Champions League after seeing off FC Porto in the quarterfinals. Thomas Tuchel's Blues progressed 2-1 on aggregate despite losing the second leg of the tie 1-0 in Sevilla on Tuesday night. PSG also went through on Tuesday night despite losing by a solitary goal to Bayern Munich in Paris, with the French club going through on away goals, having won the first leg 3-2 in Munich. Wednesday saw the quarterfinals wrapped up with Real Madrid securing a goalless draw at Anfield to progress 3-1 on aggregate against Liverpool, as Liverpool lost the battle and Liverpool did not find a way to make a comeback. Wednesday's other tie saw English club Manchester City beat Borussia Dortmund 2-1 on the night and progress into the semi-finals 4-2 on aggregate to reach their first Champions League semi-final under Pep Guardiola, though they didn't have it all their own way. Well, as the 100-day countdown for the Tokyo Olympics has begun, Sports Minister Kiren Rijiju on Wednesday teamed up with the Indian Olympic Association and had a blueprint of the 100-day countdown there, along with the SAI officials there, while all other sports personalities from and athletes from every field joined in this virtual discussion. The Union Minister held a virtual meeting and took stock of the players' preparations, and the Sports Minister expressed hope that the preparations for all the athletes are going well, and this time India will be able or will be successful in performing well at the Olympics and looking at a double-digit medal haul in Tokyo.
ओलंपिक्स का जो जर्नी है उसमें बहुत चीज़ होते हैं, इमोशंस होते हैं, उसमें पूरा देश जुड़े होते हैं, खिलाड़ी और खिलाड़ी का जो सपना होता है ये सब उसमें जुड़े होते हैं। तो इसलिए तैयारी ठीक से हो, हम अपने आप को उस ओलंपिक के लिए सही तरीके से तैयारी कैसे करें, ये सारा चीज़ को मिला करके ये काउंटडाउन हमारे लिए बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है। सारे प्लेयर्स जुड़े रहे और प्लेयर्स को ये बताना ज़रूरी है कि आपका एक एक पल, एक एक क्षण बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है, अपने लिए नहीं, देश के लिए, क्योंकि ओलंपिक्स में प्लेयर अपने लिए नहीं खेलते हैं, वो देश के लिए खेलते हैं।
Well, Pakistan captain Babar Azam, player of the match effort with an 82-ball 94 in Pakistan's third T20 against South Africa, helped them win the 3-match series. He was brilliantly supported by Mohammad Rizwan, who scored an unbeaten 73. Earlier in the day, after being asked to bat, South African openers Aiden Makram and Janeman Malan gave them a sensational start, stitching together a 108-run partnership in just 10.3 overs. The series now moves to the 4th and final T20 on April 16th. That's tomorrow. Well, that's all we have time for in this edition of news. But remember that the battle against COVID-19 continues. And I always ask people to follow this simple magic. That's SMS. Sanitize, mask yourself, social distancing. Do not forget these 3 simple tips. SMS at all times. That's most important because we want to win this battle against COVID-19, not only for ourselves and our loved ones, but for humanity at large. Well, we leave you with some wonderful visuals there to lighten up your day. Take a look at that. Enjoy. Have a safe and wonderful day ahead. Bye-bye.